The sound of the siren had always stirred something in Raphael's heart. Even as a boy, no older than 8, he would run to the sidewalk of his dusty street to watch the red fire truck speed by. His eyes would light up, and his heart would race as if, even without fully understanding, he already knew, one day, I'll be in there. Rafael dos Santos grew up in a humble neighborhood on the outskirts of Belo Horizonte. The son of Dona Helena, a housekeeper, and Seu Jose, a bricklayer, he learned the value of honest work and daily effort from an early age. He didn't have many toys, but he had dreams, and one of them always stood out: becoming a firefighter. At school, he wasn't the brightest student, but he was the one who helped his classmates, stayed after class to carry chairs for the teacher, and cared whenever someone got hurt. There was a rare sensitivity in him, a natural sense of protection. When asked what he wanted to be when he grew up, he would answer without hesitation, "A firefighter. I want to save lives." At 18, he joined the preparatory course for the fire department with a worn-out backpack on his shoulder and fierce determination in his heart. He faced hardships, physical pain, exhaustion, sleepless nights. There were days when he almost gave up, but he never did. When he passed the entrance exam, tears in his eyes, he hugged his mother and said, "Now I'm what I was born to be." During training, he stood out for his courage and discipline. He was always the first to volunteer for the most dangerous drills. He wasn't looking for medals or applause, he was searching for purpose. "Being a firefighter isn't a job, it's a calling," he used to say. And he meant it. Over time, Raphael became a role model within the unit. He earned the trust of his fellow firefighters and the respect of his commanders. But he remained the same humble man, helping his neighbors, playing soccer with his kids on weekends, and never forgetting to bring his wife flowers on their anniversary. The calling that was born in childhood became a lifelong commitment. And Raphael fulfilled that commitment with humility and honor, never knowing that one day he would be called to face his most difficult and most noble mission. The clock read 5:30 a.m. when Raphael got up. Always before the sun, always before everyone else. Even on his days off, his body was already conditioned to the discipline the job demanded. He had breakfast slowly, savoring the quiet minutes next to his wife, Juliana, while the kids were still asleep. They were small moments, but precious ones. At the station, Raphael was known as the constant. Always present, always alert, always the first to say, "Let's go," when a call came in. He wasn't the strongest or the fastest, but he was the most dependable. And in a team of firefighters, trust is what separates life from death. The battalion's routine was a mix of intense training, equipment maintenance, technical checks, and of course, the unexpected emergency calls. It could be a small fire, an animal rescue, a traffic accident, or a building collapse. Every day was unpredictable, and Raphael knew that at any moment he might be putting his life on the line. And he did it naturally. "Are you afraid?" one of the younger recruits asked him one day after a tough rescue. Raphael smiled, with that calm demeanor he was known for. "Of course I am. But fear is what keeps us sharp. What you can't do is let it speak louder than the mission." There were light moments too, shared coffee, stories told during overnight shifts, jokes in the courtyard. Raphael was the kind of man who knew how to laugh at himself, who knew how to comfort, to listen, and to teach without making it feel like a lesson. The rookies respected him, the veterans admired him. Outside of work, he was the same, present, involved. He never missed a school meeting for his kids, Sunday lunch at his mother's, or a visit to his ailing father-in-law. He knew time was short, and he made a point of spending it with the people he loved. Juliana often worried. Every time he left for work, she looked into his eyes and said firmly, "Come back to us." And he always replied with a kiss on her forehead. Always. But deep down, they both knew there were no guarantees. Raphael faced fire every day, and fire makes no promises. That autumn morning, like so many others, he said goodbye to his family, put on the red uniform, adjusted his helmet, and climbed into the truck. The radio crackled with the first call of the day. Just another shift. Or at least, it seemed to be. The station clock read 9:42 a.m. when the radio crackled with an alert. Confirmed fire. Residential building, 78 Rua de Esperança. People trapped inside. Maximum priority. Alpha team, respond immediately. Raphael was checking hoses in the courtyard. At the sound of the call, he stopped instantly, ran to the truck, and climbed into the cab as if his feet already knew the way. Within seconds, the siren was slicing through the city air and the tires were speeding down the avenues. As they sped through intersections, the commander relayed the details. 4-story building, old construction. Fire started on the 3rd floor and is spreading fast. Residents report screams coming from the top floor. Situation could escalate quickly. Raphael looked out the window. The morning sky was clear, but as they approached the street, dark smoke began rising on the horizon, a sign that the fire was already out of control. When they arrived, chaos had already taken hold. Neighbors were crying, people being rushed out, windows shattered from the heat. Flames burst from balconies, and the black smoke choked even those on the sidewalk. The team moved into position instinctively, each one knew their role, trained to act even in the midst of panic. Raphael grabbed his gear, checked his oxygen, and entered the building with his team. They quickly made their way to the 3rd floor, helping an elderly couple down. Another group worked to contain the flames with powerful streams of water. Then a scream cut through the noise. "My daughter! She's still upstairs. On the 4th floor. Please, she's 5 years old. Please save her." Raphael looked up the smoke-filled staircase. The heat was already unbearable, and the building structure was beginning to show signs of collapse. One of his teammates grabbed his arm. The commander said to pull back. The roof could cave in. But Raphael didn't hesitate. "There's a child up there. I'm going." Without waiting for a response, he began to climb. Every step was a risk. The smoke swallowed everything, and the air felt heavy as lead. He entered the apartment that had been pointed out, calling out for the girl. "Firefighter, where are you?" "I'm here to help." Amid the crackling of burning wood, he heard a faint sob. Dropping to his knees, nearly crawling, he found the little girl curled up under the bed, her eyes red and her breathing shallow. Raphael took off his own mask and placed it on her. "You're going to be okay, sweetheart. I found you." He lifted her into his arms, shielding her head with his own body. He started back down. But the way was worse now. The fire had consumed the hallway, and the walls trembled. Each step was slower, harder. As he reached the 2nd floor, a loud bang echoed. An explosion. Within seconds, part of the ceiling collapsed, and the smoke swallowed everything. The impact threw Raphael against the wall, and for a moment, everything went dark. The ceiling structure had collapsed, sending debris, dust, and flames down the 2nd floor hallway. The girl, cradled in his arms, was alive, protected by his body like a human shield. Even stunned, Raphael refused to let go of her. His shoulder ached, blood trickled down his forehead, and his breathing was starting to fail. The heat burned through his clothes, and the smoke became an invisible enemy, invading his lungs and draining his strength. But he held on to the girl. Struggling, he tried to stand. He wobbled but steadied himself on his knees. There was still a way out. Outside, the firefighters were organizing the rescues. One of his teammates, Matthias, shouted desperately, "Raphael, he's still inside. With the child." The team prepared to go back in. They knew the building was unstable and another explosion could happen at any moment. But they didn't hesitate. Through the smoke emerged a trembling silhouette covered in soot. Raphael, carrying the girl. His face was burned, his uniform torn. But his arms still held the child with almost sacred care. 2 firefighters ran to meet him and supported him. He handed the girl into Matthias's arms and finally allowed himself to drop to his knees. "Is she alive?" he asked with difficulty. Matthias, with tears in his eyes, replied, "She is, brother. She is. You did it." Raphael smiled. Small, weak, but genuine. He was rushed to the ambulance. The child was treated and suffered no serious injuries. Raphael, however, had inhaled a lot of smoke, suffered internal and external burns, and trauma from the falling debris. The medical team fought for hours. They tried everything. But that night, at 9:17 p.m., The battalion commander received the news no one wanted to deliver. Rafael dos Santos didn't make it. At the station, silence was absolute. His colleagues sat on the floor as if the weight of the loss had fallen all at once. The news spread through the city like wildfire. At the hospital door, Juliana arrived running. Seeing the stained uniform in the commander's hands, no words were needed. She dropped to her knees, crying, while their children were embraced by relatives and firefighters. At that moment, everyone knew Rafael was not just a firefighter. He was a hero, a father, a man who gave everything so that a child could have a second chance. The sky was gray on that silent morning, as if nature itself was mourning Rafael's passing. Not even the sun, which usually warmed the city with its steady light, had the courage to appear. The air felt heavy, mixing the sadness of the townspeople with the reverent silence that had taken over the fire station. The entire battalion showed up for the wake, men and women in uniform, united in respect and grief. There was no need for words because, at that moment, every look, every gesture, every breath shared the same deep pain. Rafael's coffin was carried slowly, draped with the red flag of the fire department, the highest symbol of his dedication and bravery. Around it, old and new colleagues, some with watery eyes, others with steady expressions, knew they were paying the final tribute to a brother. Rafael's helmet, his symbol of duty, was carefully placed atop the coffin like a crown of honor, a reminder that the uniform meant more than just clothes. It was the essence of who he had been until his very last moment. Juliana, his wife, stood there strong, trying to maintain the calm Rafael had always admired in her. But her eyes betrayed the whirlwind of emotions, the pain of goodbye, the fear of the future, and the responsibility of carrying the legacy of a man who had sacrificed everything out of love. Their two sons, Lucas and Miguel, only 10 and 6 years old, held their mother's hands, trying to make sense of the incomprehensible moment. The older boy, voice trembling and eyes full of tears, whispered to his father's friends, "When I grow up, I want to be just like my dad." It was the promise of a generation born from loss, the seed of a future Rafael helped plant. At the podium, the battalion commander stepped up with a heavy expression, and his voice, usually firm and authoritative, broke for the first time. The emotion was palpable, not just for the friend who was gone, but for the example he left behind. Rafael dos Santos was not just a firefighter. He was a symbol. Throughout his career, he saved dozens of lives, faced fires, collapses, accidents. But yesterday, he did something greater. He saved hope, the certainty that love for others is the most powerful force there is. He died putting a child's life above his own. That is the essence of what it means to be a firefighter. And it's that courage that will live on in each of us. The station bells rang 3 times. The final call, the toll that announces a brother in uniform has completed his mission in this world. The sound echoed through the city, mingling with the tears of those who mourned, whether at the wake, on the streets, or in their homes. In the days that followed, the pain was still fresh, but the community found ways to turn sorrow into tribute. A group of neighbors, friends, and co-workers came together to create a memorial in front of the station. A plaza was named after Rafael dos Santos, featuring a statue that showed him holding a child in his arms, an eternal image of his last mission. At the boys' school, Rafael's story was included in the curriculum about citizenship and courage. Teachers told students how a simple man from the outskirts became a hero by dedicating his life to saving others. "What is courage?" they asked, and the children answered with Rafael's example. The girl Rafael saved, the child who, in her darkest moment, trusted his arms, grew up living in the shadow of that heroic act. Years later, in a heartfelt interview she shared, "I don't remember everything, but I remember that when he held me, I felt like nothing bad could happen. He was like an angel. I'm alive today because he chose to protect me." Juliana, for her part, became a strong voice in the community, participating in events, lectures, and projects to raise awareness about the importance of firefighters' work and the value of sacrifice. She raised their children with the certainty that Rafael's love did not end that fateful day but lived on in every act of courage and kindness. She told them every night the story of their father, not as a sad legend, but as inspiration to be better people. For Lucas and Miguel, Raphael was not just a hero. He was the father who taught them the importance of protecting others, even when fear threatens to paralyze us. The pain of loss never completely disappeared, but over time, grief gave way to legacy. The name Rafael dos Santos became synonymous with bravery, empathy, and sacrifice. His example echoed through future generations, reminding everyone that true heroes are not those who seek recognition, but those who act for good, even when it costs everything. And so, as the city kept its rhythm, the heart of the firefighter who never gave up saving lives continued to beat in the chest of everyone who believes in the power of love and courage. Because true heroes never die. They become an eternal legacy.